as busy as this day. We're at the Region 1 office, UIL. The news is out, Kevin, and we've already posted it on the website. You're already posting stuff on social media. Kevin Naro with the Valley Morning Star joins me. Busy day. Coach has thrown kind of a curveball, if you will. We'll talk some baseball and the football, but the realignment has definitely changed the complexion of the horizon and where things are going for these schedules.
Yeah, I think so. 2 years ago, I think the big shocker was the Laredo's coming over to 31-5A, and then everyone was talking about the meat grinder of 32-6A 2 years later. Not necessarily the case. I think everybody got a little bit shaken up. 32-6A has a little bit of a different look. The 5As of all of them have the most changes. So I think we wanted to start there in the 5As division.
Yeah, let's go there because, well, first of all, Coach or Kevin, these coaches came in here. I talked to several of them, so did you.
Right.
They were not expecting to have to start changing schedules around. Pretty much most of these guys thought, well, there may be one or two changes. There were major changes. Let's start with Class 5, which appears to have affected most of our teams here in this region. And let's start with 5A Division 2 because that's where the big shakeup happened.
Right, 5A Division 2, we have Edcal, Chelsea, Laredo, Figueroa, Mercedes, Mission Sharyland, Valley View, Roma, Pioneer. A little bit different because we saw 31-5A have both Martin and Nixon. Now they're gone into a different district. Now it's just Figueroa. Edcal, Chelsea, Mercedes, that rivalry stays there. That's good to see. The Snakeskin Classic, that stays the same there with both the Sharyland schools. But there's a lot of playoff history here with Mercedes, Roma playing in the playoffs a couple years ago, Edcal, Chelsea, Roma from the old 32-31 5A. So those two districts kind of merged, and now you're seeing Edcal, Chelsea going to travel out west. Roma is going to travel out east. Valley View is also in the mix. And then there's that one Laredo school in the mix. Again, that's Figueroa.
And Figueroa is the one that has to come across the valley over and over and over again. And then meanwhile, these teams have to head that way. So Kevin, you were in the war room, if you will, as coaches were juggling around those schedules. And talk about what these coaches were discussing going over as you just saw guys tearing up their schedule and rewriting it from day one.
Hey, somehow I accidentally ended up on the front line when that box was opening up. And Coach Brewer and Coach Trusser were like, Kevin, be careful. Don't run this guy over. I said, Coach, put me on your shoulder, please. Don't run me over. But, I mean, it's like a kid on Christmas morning. I mean, these coaches, they're anxious to get that box. And as soon as that box opens at 9 a.m., it's like the word is out. But what was your question again? I'm sorry.
Well, they started changing schedules immediately. They had to throw their schedules out because anything that was set with that district before this wasn't going to work.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, they had their non-district schedules all panned out, and they said, okay, we may need one game, we might need two, we may have dropped some games, but no big deal. But then when they found out, especially in 6A, that we're only a 6-team district, we're gonna have to pick up more games. And then in the 5As, when you have a 7-team district, you may have to cut down on it. 2 years ago, we saw the teams go to a 9-team district. Then you really have to cut down and go from having maybe 4 non-district games to having 2 or even 1. And the word I kept hearing was prep work. The coaches are like, well, now we have less time to prepare for district, and then you become more picky on who you want to play to prepare for a non-district, rather than saying, well, we have 4 non-district games. We can play a team that runs a spread. We can play a team that runs a pro style. When you have less non-district games, then it's like, okay, then we really need to pick and choose wisely who we play in non-district, because it matters to most of these coaches who you play.
So that's 5A Division 2. And again, Kevin, 5A itself changed complexion by going true Division 1, Division 2.
Right. And I talked with Coach Ritchie yesterday, and we talked about it. I said, hey, do you think the 6As will get there? And he believes it will. Maybe obviously not now, maybe in 2 years, maybe in 4 years from now, but we think that the Division 1, Division 2 may be coming to 6A soon enough.
And what that means, fans who may not be familiar with what's going on with that, prior to this box opening up this morning, Class 5 teams would play throughout their regular season and then establish the playoff teams, 4 teams from the district, and then it would be decided from a enrollment perspective who was a Division 1 and who was Division 2. That's all changed now because they all know, all of these teams we're talking about, District 16, Class 5A, Division 2, are Division 2 schools, and that's it. They're going to break them out that way.
Right, and it's interesting to see that all unfold. And then on the Division One side, if you want to flip over to that's where it's I believe it's a 9-team district, 10-team district, right?
So there are no non-district games.
Right. So
one.
that one.
Right.
So again, it goes back to coaches thinking, well, we have 2 or 3 games scheduled, then you have to cut them, then you have to find that one non-district game. And I'm just curious, I didn't get to talk to these coaches, but I wonder how much value they put in that one non-district game as far as preparation goes.
And it doesn't necessarily have to happen on week 1, but at the same time, it's even a scheduling nightmare to try to figure out, well, all right, if I schedule my game here, then everyone else had better be available and down the line. So they actually have to communicate amongst themselves and establish, okay, do we all just go week 1, and that's a non-district game, and then schedule everyone against each other? It is a nightmare to try to pull this off in these 19 districts. So District 16, again, all of this is on the website. It's also on our Facebook, on our social media. But Brownsville, Lopez, Pace, Porter, Veterans, and then Donna, Palmview, Mission Veterans Memorial, PSJA Memorial, PSJ Southwest, and Rio Grande City. Rio joins the mix with the Brownsville schools, and there's some travel there, Kevin.
Talk about traveling, yeah. And the Brownsvilles, well, they're all familiar with each other from being in the 32-5A. The big shakeup here is when you have La Jolla Palmview move from 36A down to the 5A, PSJ Memorial, PSJ Southwest coming from 31-6A down to the 5A, so that's going to be interesting to see there. PSJ Memorial, they were a team that won a couple games last year. They're a team that's expected to take the next step under Coach Mike Uribe. PSJ Southwest is another team under Coach Evans, who's also expected to take that next step. Mission Veterans, the juggernaut in 31-5A. If you're going to ask me right now, I'm going to say it's going to come down to Mission Veterans and Brownsville Veterans. Those 2 teams are going to be,
that would be the crystal ball that I would use. The same thing.
Absolutely. And they have playoff history together. They played 2 years ago, I believe, in the bi-district round in Brownsville when Mission Vets won that football game. Donna, Mission Vets also has playoff history too. So it's going to be fun. These teams are familiar with each other. It's just a 10-team district. I mean, last year, Gilpin got thrown a 9-team district. This year he gets thrown a 10-team district. So it's like, here you go, knock yourself out. But Rio Grande City, they're gonna lose the Sherrylands, the Roma, and Figueroa from the old 31-5A from last year, or from this year rather. So Rio Grande City is a little bit of a shakeup. Donna, they're familiar with the Brownsville schools as well. So to me, this is the district that had the most shakeup.
And Mission Vets, talk about them, Kevin. The rivalry game, they're one non-district game. They want to keep the rivalry game between Mission. That's right. A big game right there at Tom Landry Stadium. Right,
and it's amazing because it's a domino effect, because Harlingen had Mission Vets on their schedule in the non-district. So then when Harlingen gets thrown a 6-team district, then they lose Mission Veterans because they only have one non-district game. So it affects everybody, this 10-team district.
And is that domino effect? Let's just do the transition. Let's go to 6A, and let's talk about the one that you're most familiar covering, and that's 32-6A. Because, Kevin, we called it the meat grinder. We called it the best district in the Valley this year, and arguably it played out that way. The teams that were there were all playoff caliber football teams, and now there's only 6, and they're all still good.
Yeah, it's still a solid district from top to bottom, but this is the only 6-team district in the 6As in the entire Valley, and then we all have a 4A and then a 4-team district in the smaller schools. But none of the coaches expected this, because the expectation was to have the 6 teams lose the Westlacos and add Donna North. That was the latest buzz that I had heard. That was what most of the coaches were expecting. Coach Ritchie and Coach Gomez, it was a curveball, because it's unpredictable. You never know with the UIL and what they're going to throw in. But you still have Hanover, Rivera, both Harlingens, Los Fresnos, San Benito. That's still a tough go around. Your non-district's going to be a little bit longer, but the district's still going to be a grind. You do lose Westlacco East, who historically have caused fits. Westlacco East most recently with their playoff runs and being competitive in a district for the district title.
So now let's talk about what they did for these non-district games, because you hit on this earlier that coaches now have a decision. I know Manny Gomez, Harlingen, likes to prepare his football team for playoff type scenarios, and therefore normally his schedule, he tries to bring in some out of the region area teams, some potential playoff teams. Do you do that when you have this many non-district games? Do you load it up? Did he load it up? He's already got it set.
He's got it set. Yeah, week 1 they're gonna roll with Sharyland Pioneer. Week 2 United South, a team they're familiar with, and then Manny. There's always gonna be one big name in there, and that's week 3. Judson does come to Bogus, so write that down, Cardinal fans. Judson will be coming to town. Westlaco East, him and Burgett know each other. Obviously, they were district opponents. Then they finish with Midland High, not Midland Lee. Some people were saying Midland Lee. It's Midland High that they're going to be playing week 5. That was their final district game. But boy, it was a hassle for Coach Gomez, for Coach Ritchie, Coach Ritchie still hasn't found a week 5 game. They're still scrambling around. Some of the coaches were even looking into the 4As. They were flirting with the idea of maybe a Tulsa Midway, a Sinton, Rockport, Fulton. They were making phone calls to Corpus. They were making phone calls to Laredo. They were making phone calls West Texas. So the phone calls were coming aplenty. But that's Harlingen's non-district schedule. And to touch up on the Cardinals, last year I know wasn't an ideal year for Harlingen, but they do have a lot coming back. And just looking at this non-district schedule, I don't know if Midland Lee made the playoffs last year, but every team on here was a playoff team from last year, and that's just a testament to what Manny Gomez likes to do at Harlingen and how he builds this non-district schedule.
Let's talk about the district champion, San Benito Greyhounds, and what did they do in getting set for their non-district games?
Well, I'm excited right out of the gate. They have some scrimmages. They have 2 scrimmages, one against Nixon, one against Corpus Christi Vets, but then we roll into week 1. They play Cal Allen, powerhouse, and then they play Victoria West, who the Valley's come familiar with. That's week 2. Week 3, PSJ High. Now, I kind of wish that game would have been this year. To see Trago, Hodlo, and Eric would have to go at it. That would have been a lot of fun to watch. That would have been a lot of points. But that's week 3 against PSJ. Week 4, Laredo United, a team they played the past couple years they're familiar with. And then they play Midland Lee, the big one, week 5.
And Midland Lee, of course, is down here, and that gets you set into the district games. We'll get to those district games. But since we've talked about Harlingen and talked about San Benito, Kevin, last year all the talk was, when's it going to happen? When's the Valley Royal? How big is it going to be? How big is it going to be? Won't take fans long to know this year when district play rolls around. Valley Royal?
First week of district, so get ready.
And so
be ready. I mean, for me, it kind of just takes away a little bit of the anticipation because these last 2 years, Joe, I mean, it was really last game of the year. Not so much this year, but in 2016, it was a perfect storm because you had number 1 versus number 2. You had perfect seasons on the line. You had a district title on the line. San Benito was looking to go for the 3-peat. It was the perfect storm in 2016. And then this year, not so much. Harlingen didn't have a very good season. And San Benito, they did what they did in that final game of the season. But, yeah. And I believe week 9 is going to be the Bird Bowl. I could be wrong. Week 7, week 9. I have to go back and check. But speaking of the Bird Bowl, Harlingen South, the third team I cover out there, they shaked up their non-district schedule just a little bit. They dropped Edinburgh North. They dropped PSJ High, but they're going to go with week 1 at Edinburgh High, and then they're going to have PSJ North week 2. They kept Mac High from last year. They're going to play in week 3. Week 4, they're going to play Westlaco, a team they're familiar with. And then week 5 still up in the air. Coach Ritchie's still fishing for a week 5 opponent, and they're kind of looking out in West Texas, potentially one of those teams from out there.
And when you start doing that, fans, what you run into when this stuff starts happening is, and you get this late in the game, you may have to go on the road for a team to play you.
Right.
Because, and then fans start asking, they were asking me all during the season and asking me already leading up into this, why was Bogus Stadium empty for a couple of weeks during the season last year? And is it going to be empty again this year? And I said, I know that they're striving to have Bogus Stadium occupied each and every week. But when that kind of thing happens and you don't have a game this late in the game, then you may be traveling a long way to play football.
It's challenging, and it becomes a hassle for a lot of these athletic directors to have to start piling up that bill, because you have to go on so many road trips. But that's not necessarily the case with Harlingen South. It's all Valley schools, unlike Harlingen and San Benito both have some road trips they might have to do. But yeah, well, I'll let you know when I find out that week 5 opponent. But as of now, Harlingen South is still looking for that week 5 opponent because everything was pretty much set in stone until we got that 12-6 curveball by Westlaco's, which would be expected. But again, we thought that the Donna Norths would slide on over to a 32-6A. But Let's go home, 31-6A.
Now let's go to 31-6A. Donna North, Edinburgh, Edinburgh Economides, Edinburgh North, Edinburgh Vela, Westaco, Westaco East. So you get the city rivalry of Edinburgh. You get that. It's still self-contained.
Right.
You get an eventual city champion. Westaco gets to have the Tanaka Bowl to decide the city champion. Those are district games now. And then PSJA, out of that, Donna North is in that mix. And so does Donna North pick up Donna to try to keep that city championship there?
I didn't get to talk to Coach Marichila, so I can't answer that, Joe. But speaking to the 31-6A, it looks a lot familiar from what it was a couple years ago, because it was the Edinburghs and it was the Westlagos and it was the Fars. But Donna North coming over to 31-6A was a surpriser, because, again, we thought they were coming over to 32-6A. Instead, they slide on over to 31-6A. And the Edinburghs keeping together, I like that, of course, me being an Edinburgh guy, that keeps the rivalry going. And then Westaco East, coming from 32 to 31, it's kind of been back and forth for those schools. But across the board, for Westaco, I'll talk girls hoops. It's going to rekindle that Westaco-Edinburgh High rivalry when it comes to girls basketball. Westaco-Edinburgh High softball, Westaco-Edinburgh North softball. So from across the board, I really like how that's going to pan out, and I like how that's going to look. But it's to no surprise that the Westlagos are back in the 31-6A. And then, of course, the interesting thing in 31-6A is that you see the Fars split. Because at one point it was Edinburgh and Fars, and I know my sister, who was at Edinburgh North last year, is like, we have a boring district. It's just the Edinburghs and the Fars.
That's all it was.
That's all it was.
They played in two stadiums. All district games were played in two stadiums.
Yeah, so talk about being familiar with traveling and knowing where you're going. So, of course, we'll get to PSJ North and PSJ on where they went, and then, of course, you had the other two PSJs, Southwest and Memorial, go down to the 5As.
But they're still gonna complete in three stadiums with Donna.
Right.
There's three stadiums. It's still
Little bit.
limited to the number of stadiums they play in because of all the
And
Edinburghs
Westaco.
being the same in Westaco.
So
3 stadiums. That's it.
A little bit of traveling.
For District 31-6A. Now let's talk about 36A. Out there go the Fars with Mission, with McAllen Rowe and the McAllen schools. And Kevin La Jolla Warriors Lincoln, McAllen, Memorial, Rowe, Mission, PSJA, and PSJA North. That looks to be a competitive district.
Absolutely, and McAllen Memorial has been the cream of the crop the last couple of years, but now they're going to get a good run for their money with PSJ. PSJ coming to town. That's going to be a lot of fun with Trago Hodolo getting ready for his senior year. Sean Scoggin, he's going to be a senior quarterback for McAllen Memorial, Campbell Spates. So that game already, to me, I would circle that district game. And then, of course, you have the McAllen Memorial PSJ North ties with Coach Marcus Kaufman. Coach Kaufman's wife is the principal at Rowe. His daughter coaches at Mac High. And then, of course, he was the OC for a long time at McAllen Memorial. So there's a lot of family ties in that district. So it's going to be a lot of fun in 36A. And then, of course, you have the Palmview dropping down to 5A. So La Jolla's also kind of gets split the way the PSJs did as well.
Let's talk about 4A, and let's take a look at 4A Division 1. 16. Hidalgo, Kingsville King, La Feria, Rio Grande City, Gruya, and Zapata. And then on Division 2, Port Isabel, Progreso, Raymondville, Rio Hondo. So let me go to Division 2, because the good news, Kevin, is when you're talking about playoffs, fans, you all get to buy a playoff ticket.
That's great. And we're going to start in Division 2, Division 1?
Division 2.
Okay, Division 2, yeah. That one, too, was a bit of a shocker, because it's like, wait a minute, 4 teams. I told Coach Brett Esparza, is that possible? It was 4 teams? Because I remember that one year when Gruya won one, were they 14? They won one playoff game,
Yes.
And they made the playoffs. And ho-hum, they got Lavernia on that by-district ground. But it can be a little tricky, because right above them in District 15, they got 2, 4, 6, they got 7 teams. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all pans out. But I actually do have the Rio Hondo non-district schedule. They open up with Juarez Lincoln in week 1, then they get Zapata. They got St. Joe week 3, Gruya week 4, Hidalgo week 5, La Feria week 6. Those teams are all familiar with Rio Hondo is. They're just struggling to find a week 7 game, and I think that's where the challenge was when you have a 4-team district, because it's like, okay, the front end of your non-district is easy, then you get into district, then what are you going to do on the back half of your season? You cannot just not play a game week 7, week 8, and then get ready for the playoffs. So Rio Hondo Raymondville, they got their work cut out for them trying to find games in that back half of the season. And it's amazing, again, this domino effect where you see teams struggling to find teams in non-district in maybe week 5. Then you go down to the 4As and you see teams who easily found a week 5 game but can't find a game in the final weeks of the season.
And it's going to, and there's no way they can bring in the big schools. As we were talking about some of the big schools entertaining the thoughts of bringing in these smaller schools. Well, you have to throw that out the window because you're deep into district play by that time at these Class 5 and Class 6 levels. So, and suddenly Rio Hondo may be traveling a long way. We saw that a couple of years ago when Wesco had to travel a long way just to get a football game. And we may see that again, big-time travel plans. And usually it's against a team that is pretty good.
Most of the time, yeah, absolutely. But, yeah, I mean, even some of the 6A schools were kind of flirting with the idea of playing some 4As, and then they even looked into the 5As. But because everybody was so booked in that back half of the non-district part of the schedule, that's what made everything difficult.
And the thing about scheduling, after talking with coaches for years, an athletic director at a Class 6 level will see a Class 4 schedule as a nightmare. Even if they're taking on a team that's a state contender, Kevin, you still run into that. There's no way I win in this. If we beat them, oh, you're supposed to beat them. If you lose to them, oh, wow.
Right.
And why did you schedule that game?
Right.
And there you are. For Class 4s, they're saying, call me.
Right.
You know, we want to get on the map. We want to play this because they, too, we talked about Manny Gomez scheduling the Converse Judsons to come down. Well, when you're talking about these Class 4 teams, they would love to get a big school in there to put a challenge at their kids that says, all right, when we get into rounds 2, 3, and beyond in the playoffs, we're going to see bigger, faster athletes, bigger teams. So they want that. But, Kevin, right now, Rio Hondo sitting there saying, where are we going to play when it gets into that week 7?
Yeah, and like I said, it's going to be a task because, I mean, if you don't find anybody, then you just have to take a bye. And then it kind of messes up what you wanted to do. And see, that's what some of the 6A coaches were saying. They're like, they had week 1, week 2, week 3, and at one point, who are we going to play week 4, week 5, or rather week 5 and week 6? Excuse me, let me go back to 6A. I was in 4A. It was the last 2 weeks, week 4 and week 5. At one point, some of these coaches didn't have non-district games in week 4 and week 5. The problem there was like, we don't want to play 3 games, miss 2 weeks, and jump into district.
No.
That would have been a big problem. Because it's one thing to have a bye week once, fine, you can deal with that, but to have 2 weeks off and then to jump into district play.
Consecutive weeks.
It's a hassle. It's a hassle.
All right, let's stick with Class 4 because when you get to district play and you're in Class 4, Division 1, and you're La Feria High School, the closest game you're going to travel to is Hidalgo. After that, they're traveling to Rio Grande City, they're traveling to Zapata, they're going to Kingsville King, and they're going to go to Rio Grande City, Zapata, Kingsville King, and then Hidalgo. La Feria, get ready. Your traveling shoes had better be on when it comes to district play.
Absolutely, and they were a young team this year. Dorian Hernandez, their sophomore quarterback, had a great year, so they're expecting a lot of big things out of him. He's familiar with Gruya, Zapata, Kingsville King, so not too much has changed. But you're right, the road is going to be tough, and it's kind of like what Rio Grande City has to do out there, or Laredo's having to come west. So I think once you've done it for a couple of weeks, you kind of get used to it, and then it's on a Friday night. So it's not all that bad. Where I feel bad is when you get basketball, volleyball,
yep.
Tuesday games where these kids got to travel and have homework on a school night. So that's where it can get a little bit tough.
Yeah, if you got road games for La Feria in volleyball and you're going to Kingsville and then Zapata on a Tuesday, Friday,
Right.
That's a lot of travel involved.
Right.
Rivalry games at the Class 4 level, Rio Hondo is still intact because of their district with some of their big rivals.
Right.
And then their schedule alone, like you said, they were able to knock out some of the big games that fans look forward to year in, year out when these Class 4 teams square off.
Right, and they're still going to play Hidalgo. They're going to play Gruya. St. Joe over the past couple of years has become a bit of a rivalry game with Tyler Bush and Kai Money. Although they're not going to be there next year, but they've developed a little bit of a rivalry over the past couple of years. And of course, they get the Raymondville rivalry, and then of course the old Port Isabel rivalry. So Not too bad at the end of the day, but it's still a 4-team district, and it makes it a little bit difficult.
And again, all of these districts, we have them already up on the website. And of course, Kevin Naro here with the Valley Morning Star will be running probably multiple stories from what transpired in that room when that box opened up and the chaos began.
Yeah, I said, well, 32-6A didn't have too much of a shakeup. I patted the guys on the monitor, said, have fun with talking about what happened in 31, 31-5A, 36A. I said, have fun.
Yeah.
You guys have your work cut out for you.
So that was a lot of fun there. Fans, we're gonna wrap it up. We were trying to get over to get the coaches, but I can't be in two places at one time. I was over across the valley, but we are looking forward to visiting with coaches on this, and we'll have our next coaches show. We're still talking about doing a possible coaches show on Super Bowl Sunday, which is this Sunday. And if I can get some of these football guys to come in and talk football, it might work on a Super Bowl Sunday. If not, we'll have them shortly on the website. Kevin, any additional thoughts on what happened here? You've been here a few times. You've covered this. And was this the most chaotic that you've seen it yet?
Yes, most definitely. And I like to see it as a bit of a family reunion, because I get to see a bunch of old coaches and get to just catch up with each other. So it's a lot of fun. I was here, I got a little after 8, so I've been here pretty much all morning, kind of just mingling, talking to coaches. So it's always good to see them. I just feel me being an Edinburgh guy, I was sitting at the Harlingen table, and I was like, I'm in the Harlingen circle. I'm not in the Edinburgh circle or the Far circle, in the McAllen circle. I'm in the Harlingen, San Benito circle. Nothing wrong with that. I love it. I love being over there in the Harlingen area.
And the good thing about this guy is that he, in the media perspective, had the foresight to be covering those teams, even though he wasn't assigned those games, so he was familiar enough to be able to sit at those tables. So Kevin Naro, Valley Morning Star, rgvsports.com. You can read all of his stories. And again, they're going to be entertaining. And watch for additional schedules. We'll have our schedules up on the website as well. We've got all this non-district stuff that they were playing out. The district stuff, they can sort that out, and they will sort that out in a relatively short period of time. But watch the website as we update our schedules and have you up to speed. And Kevin, I say it every year that it gets the time span seems shorter and shorter between this time of the year when we're talking basketball playoffs, and you blink your eyes, 7-on-7 wrapped up, and it's 2-a-days, and football season is indeed here.
And we're ready to roll.
We're ready to roll.
Yes,
Thanks
sir.
for joining us. This has been a live coverage from UIL, the realignment announcement taking place here at Region 1. Till next time, from Real Sports Live, I'm Joe Bowling. We'll see you next time.